Well, in yesterday's video, you seen me get this thing running. You heard me figuring out some issues from the map sensor all the way back to the ground up here for the computer. So today what we're going to do is we have to put in the top motor mount, we got to put the rad in, we got to put our transmission cooler, we got to put our aftermarket shifter cable, our aftermarket shifter, we got to put the struts back into it. Basically just get everything set up. Now, with the EGR delete that I did on the back of this manifold, I still have one small vacuum leak, so I'm going to try to figure out what to do with that. I might switch it out for an older one. I might just go buy a plug. I might even use something to do with brakes to block that off. But as far as I know, there's still a vacuum leak right there that I do not appreciate. So we're going to fix that. But another thing, 92 to 96 computers will not run these newer motors. So make sure, if you're doing a motor swap like this, to actually label the computers, because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to plug in the wrong computer, which I did repeatedly. So, yeah, that's okay. Basically, everything's getting better to go on this, and we just have to continue taking it to the point and cleaning up the wiring. I kind of want to get this thing super nice looking so that when it comes time, the motor can come out and go to a different car, or I can save the harness and bring to a different car. I still have a little bit of an issue with it overfueling. I haven't figured that out. Like I said, we're going to have to bring in a untorn apart Toyota Camry and probe the computers to see what I'm missing. Just realized we haven't finished hooking up the steering, so we'll do that today. Everything's coming pretty good with this. One other part that we did change out. On 97 to 01, the thermostat housing is plastic. And I'm really not that big a fan of plastic. So, on the 92 to 96, it's actually aluminum. So, I would take aluminum over plastic. So that's now been swapped out to aluminum. And pretty much that's just about it. Everything's going great, I think. We're going to get some water into this. We have the rear brakes cut off. Power steering's filled. Basically just motor mounts, shifter, transmission cooler, struts and suspension, and then a little bit better of a cage. So let's get going and see what we can get done on this today. We're going to bring something back to this car, and that is my fuse panel. Now, I kind of had a little bit of a crappy luck with this fuse panel in a couple different demolition derbies. In Dundalk, one of the switches died on me. In Brampton, the start button died on me, so I'm not overly happy with this fuse panel, but with how this car is going to be set up with ignition, fuel, alternator, fan, I'm going to have basically all these toggles used up. So I do need quite a bit of toggles, and this is already set up. So I'm going to tear this thing down. Well, I'm not going to tear it down. I'm going to open it up and make sure that everything's still okay-ish on the inside of it. And then I have to fix the ends that melted in Brampton back here. And then we can install this thing. Just a couple dangly wires that I'm not overly happy with, but just gonna fix this thing up and install it now. we were working on this car the other day and the battery on the camera died. So, did a little bit of stuff without the camera. Where we left off after the battery died is we had the fuse panel in there, we had the car running off the fuse panel, we did a little bit of cleaning up of the electrical, we installed our transmission cooler, we installed a radiator, we installed our top strut tower bar, basically like that. But we had a little bit of issues, one being gas tank does not fit in the gas tank bracket, so I'm going to actually pull that gas tank and put a different gas tank in this car. Battery is dead, 100% dead. So we're going to pull this battery out and we're going to get a different battery from in the house for this car just to make sure it runs. Fuse panel. That really nice fuse panel I built this spring. I pushed the start button and the start button stayed down. Car fired up. Start button stayed down. Didn't realize it. Burnt the starter out of it. Burnt the starter out of it. So we now have a new starter, well, previously enjoyed starter underneath the hood of this thing, but the start button is still located down. What we're going to have to do with that is we're going to have to get rid of that start button. I have never liked it. I have never liked it. We're going to come up with a different style button, or we're just going to come up with a wire that you touch together. I'm happy with just touching the wire off the positive, so that's probably what we're going to come up with. This car is just about done. We do want to add more to the cage, but I'm probably going to wait for that until I figure out where this car is going, because how it is right now, it can run a lot of events, but if I put a different cage or add to this cage, it is going to make it so it can't run a lot of the events that I was kind of planning for it to run. Some stuff that we can still do is weld our threaded rod on. That would be nice, because it's always nice to have threaded rod on one of these cars. Excuse me. The key is completely bypassed, so we're actually going to snap the key off in the ignition of this in the on position, so that way we don't have to worry about the steering locking up or somebody stealing our key and our steering locking. There's probably ways I could go around getting around that, smash the key out, but it doesn't really matter. Let me bring the camera over here and I'll show you guys how this car looks as a close-up. So here we are underneath the hood, and we've got the top mount switched out. We don't have an alternator belt on it yet. We did do an AC delete, so I'm going to look on the internet or maybe run a string and try to find a belt that will work for this. We do have our rad put in. We do have our transmission cooler hooked up with some better gear clamps than what we had last year. Now we're running a different style of transmission cooler on this car. This right here is out of I believe a 2003 two-wheel drive Cummins. And I like it because it is fairly large. It actually holds quite a bit of fluid, but it's very thick and it's very narrow. So it fits into these spots where normal transmission coolers would not fit. So here's the EGR block-off plate. As you can see, I've got rid of a lot of the vacuum lines on this thing and basically deleted a lot of things that do not need to be on this. We have our negatives, we have our positive, we have our one fuel line because this is a newer motor, so it does not have returns. Basically, that's about it underneath the hood. As you come inside, all the electrical's gone. This right here is going to be cut out even more than what it is right now, because that's going to bother me and hit my knee. But all the electrical's gone. Basically, everything's out of the car. That battery's dead, so we'll have to get changed out. We do have our aftermarket transmission shifter inside the car. We have our fuse panel with the start button broken, so we will change out that start button. I'll probably just make it so I touch the wire off the positive, because I don't really like that push button. It's giving me a couple issues. As you come back, we have our gas tank holder here in the back seat with our gas tank that is too big to fit in that holder, so we'll put a different gas tank in this car. We have all these leaves that we have to clean out. We still have electrical back here that does nothing, so all this will have to come out. You can see it all here. And then we have our trunk, which is just seat belted closed. And I don't really want to do too much more welding on this car, to be honest. I might dish out the trunk just a bit and maybe throw a couple body lines in the back here, but that's realistically all I wrote for this car. I'm going to throw the hood back on it, so that way there's a hood on it, but I really think this thing is done. other than threaded rod, which I don't really have a lot of right now, this car is pretty much done.